Hello, everybody. Happy Marvelous Monday. Hope that you all are well. I'm excited that you're joining me today. I'm Karissa Spann, the landlord and tenant coach, the landlord and tenant expert. Today, I am super excited to share some information. One of my viewers asked me to discuss this topic today, and it's about hoarding. A lot of people may not be knowledgeable or aware of what hoarding is. And so, my goal today is to make sure that I'm providing information that is clear and understandable. And so, if you have questions, please go ahead and drop your question or your comment in the comment section box, and I will respond to them accordingly. Also, if this is your first time tuning in, let me just say welcome. Thank you for tuning in. This is what I do each and every Monday. I share information to help landlords and tenants in the rental community as a property management professional, as a landlord and tenant expert. I am passionate about making a difference, sharing information that I know or believe would be beneficial to the entire rental community. So today I have tips for landlords on how to handle tenants who are hoarders. All right, so please don't be a stranger. Go ahead in the comment section if you can hear me okay. If you're out there, drop something in the comment section box just to say, hey, girl, hey. And then also let me know where you're tuning in from. And I just want to say to all of my seasonal allergy sufferers, such as myself, listen, it's here. Allergy season is here. So don't be alarmed if my eyes are a little red. I've been under attack all day, just allergies out the blue. So, but anyway, today is not about allergies, it's about tenants who are hoarders. So, let me just acknowledge some people who are here today. Hello, thank you so much, Jennifer, for tuning in. Happy Monday, beautiful. Hello, Lynn. Thank you. Happy Monday, big sis. I do appreciate you. Hello, Miss Anderson. Happy marvelous Monday. I want to say welcome to all of you, whether you're tuned in by way of Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn. I just want to say thank you all so much. So, listen, I'm going to get right into it. If you have questions today, if you have a comment, please drop it in the comment section. I do appreciate all of you. I promise I will not hold up much of your time, but I'm going to share information today um, that will help a lot of you who are landlords. Hello, Miss Davis. Happy marvelous Monday. And then also the information that I'm sharing today, and although it's primarily targeted for landlords, I want tenants to understand how serious this nature is. All right. Being a hoarder is a serious problem. And so, one of the things that I know that some landlords have a concern about regarding tenants who are hoarders is whether or not they could either help the tenant or evict the tenant. So I'm going to chime in. I'm going to answer some questions, and I want you to also have some input. So let me just share some information because um, some people may not be aware of what hoarding is. All right, so I want to make sure that we're all on the same page. I don't want to assume that everybody is familiar with this topic. All right, but hopefully you've had an opportunity to check out the description and a picture. And now the picture that I show today is just a glimpse of what hoarding can look like. It could be severe. It could be way worse than the picture that I shared today. It could be mild. All right, so but here is what hoarding is. All right, hoarding is it's a tenant or someone who accumulates things closely and they guard them in such an excessive way. But the most important thing that I want people to understand about hoarding is this: it could be a mental health disorder. So if hoarding is so bad, it could be considered a mental health disorder. All right, I want people to understand that because if that's a mental health disorder, that means it is a disability. All right. Um, so hoarding, it can be, and in many cases, it is a hazard. Why is that? Because there are oftentimes materials or possessions in the rental home which presents a health or safety danger. It could also be a tripping hazard. So, for example, It could be an excessive amount of newspapers, magazines, boxes, um, whether it's boxes of food, clothing. It could also be pets. I've gone into rental properties where tenants they had a large number of pets. This one tenant, I think she had about 62 cats in her two-bedroom apartment. And if you can imagine cats all over the place, and obviously the cats are not using the bathroom, in the toilet, so the cats have to use the bathroom somewhere. And so the cats found a spot wherever they could in the apartment. It reeked with the odor of the cat feces, and so that is a hazard. All right. There are signs, however, that a person is a hoarder. So there are two phases. The first phase is pretty mild. The second phase is a little more complicated and difficult, which is how and when you know that it is a mental health disorder. So here is phase one. In phase one, in a hoarder's home, every room it's still accessible. Um, their job and their finances are in order, so they may still work. They still, may live a normal life. Uh, a sign of stage one is that all of the closets are overstuffed. Family members who may be in a home, they're still healthy, but you may also see piles of clothes and things that are untouched. And sometimes a hoarder, they get anxiety over the piles that are in the home. So that's stage one. So that's not as extreme as the picture is of the description. Now, I want to share phase two, and then I'm going to give landlord tips on how to handle tenants who are hoarders, because I believe that there's a way to handle things. And I know sometimes for those of you who are landlords and you may be like me or similar to me, you really have a heart for your tenants and you really care. At the end of the day, it is still a business. So I'm going to share some tips, but let us recognize what phase or stage two looks like. So signs of stage two is a little more extreme. So the weekly cleaning has stopped. Or maybe they have gone to clean up maybe once a month, or if they clean up at all. And but you can also see signs of depression and loneliness because it's obvious. And so when you go into the rental property, you may notice that they're starting to bring in more and more things. More things are entering the property than leaving. Um, and even in this situation, family members, they may be healthy, or maybe they could be pretending to be healthy. And then I talked about the pet odor, how the pet odor just reeked throughout the property. Listen, at this stage, a hoarder may be embarrassed because of their home condition, and maybe they don't want people visiting. And usually with stage two, they are embarrassed. They kind of distance themselves from people. They don't really like people coming over. They seem to be alone and to themselves. They always just want to be in a house. So that's a sign of stage two. When it gets to that point, that's more along the lines of it being a mental health disorder. And so people everywhere experience this. So nobody's exempt. Doesn't really matter where you are in the world. It doesn't matter if the rental property is an apartment. It could be a house. It could be a single family home. It could be a town home. It doesn't matter the age. Hoarders are of all age brackets. They could be young. They could be old. But I want people to understand that nobody is exempt from this situation. So let me share some tips with you on how landlords can handle this situation. Because again, when you see these things going on in a rental property, you may be a little surprised. You may be shocked even. But there's a way that this can be handled. So let me share some tips with you because I want your takeaway to be clear. And if you have questions, like I said, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. But let me share some tips with you on how to handle these type of situations today. Is that all right? And again, if you have questions, go ahead and drop it in the comment section. Excuse me for a moment while I take a drink of water. I am suffering from the allergies extremely bad today. All right, so let me share my first tip. All right. And again, thank you for those of you who are just tuning in. You're just chiming in. You're just coming on. We're talking about hoarders, how landlords can handle tenants who are hoarders. So, let me just share this information because I know that a lot of landlords are impacted by hoarders. I've been in property management, I've been in the industry for well over 28 years. And I have seen so much in my tenure, and in addition to being a property manager, in addition to being a property management educator, I'm also a housing inspector. So I'm more active. I'm usually one of the individuals that most of my tenants see because I'm not a behind the desk type of person. I'm actually out making sure that the homes are decent, safe, and sanitary. So again, because hoarding is considered, depending on how extreme it is, hoarding is a mental disability. Now, before I share the tips, here's what I do want you to understand. Because mental health is a disability, hoarders are protected by fair housing laws because fair housing laws protect individuals who are disabled. So, the tips that I'm going to share today, they're straight to the point. I don't want you to deviate from the tips that I'm sharing today because if you do, you could potentially get yourself in a lot of trouble because fair housing laws are in place to protect tenants. And the fines are hefty, which means that tenants could actually sue landlords. Okay. So, um, then also, when it comes to hoarding, when it comes to extreme situations with hoarding, for instance, it could be a situation where doors are blocked. It could be the floors are damaged. It could be the walls are damaged, which now, if you think about like large amounts or stacks of boxes or clothing or whatever it is, if it blocks ventilation, that's going to be an issue. So that would be a housing code violation. I had a tenant who I went into the property last year, and when I went into the apartment, I think I was a little surprised by what I saw. Not only was a tenant a hoarder, I mean, this tenant had boxes of food, like canned food that he had stored over the years, and there were large amounts of boxes just stacked up along the walls. Um, and the apartment, I mean, the apartment was really, really small. I mean, this particular tenant had maybe just about this amount of space just to get through. And I couldn't understand how anyone prior to me coming into management of this particular rental property, I didn't understand how anyone, any housing professional, would allow the tenant to stay in that condition. Right. And so I was extremely concerned. I had to help the tenant to understand that it was a violation. And he pleaded, he begged me to not help him. But unfortunately, I had to let him know that it was a violation. One of the things that I did was I reached out to his family to try to get this gentleman some help. But here are the tips that I do want to share today. And here's the first one. All right. You want to document everything in writing, and you also want to take pictures of the situation. The one thing that I commonly share is this: documentation beats conversation any day. So you want to document the situation, you want to take pictures, and then you also want to notify your tenant of the findings. As soon as you come into awareness of the issue, you want to address it. I promise you that seeing something and not saying something will not make the problem go away. So if you see something, say something, document it, make sure that it's in writing, communicate with the landlord, but definitely follow up. I'm sorry, communicate with the tenant, but make sure that you're following up in writing. Okay, so that's the first tip: document. Here's my second tip for landlords today: offer your offer your assistance to help the tenant. Maybe, I'm not saying that you have to go in personally and clean up. All right. What I am saying is that see if there is some sort of agency that could assist your tenant. Maybe see if there's some sort of company that will come in and help the tenant clean up. But here's the thing: you are offering help, but you cannot force the tenant to receive your help. I want to put a great emphasis on this, and here's why. Another rental property I managed, it was over 200, I believe it was 279 apartments. And one of the tenants was an elderly gentleman. I think he was maybe in his 90s. And anybody who knows me know that I'm a daddy's girl. And so I was extremely close to my father before he passed away. And so when I saw this elderly guy, he so much reminded me of my father, who was also in his 90s, right? And so I just took it personal that a housing professional, the prior managers or manager who was there before I came on to this particular property did absolutely nothing. So the place was infested. This tenant had bed bugs. This tenant had roaches. This tenant had newspapers and boxes and magazines all over the place. This tenant had bags of stuff. I don't know, just years of stuff just sitting around. It had been there obviously for years. Only God knows how many years it had been there. But all I know is that it was a fire hazard. Listen, in that particular apartment, it was so bad that the bed bug infestation that I told you about, I couldn't even treat the unit for bed bugs because the pest control company said, Karissa, there is no way that we can treat this rental property. We have to treat it with heat. And if we put heat in here, this whole apartment is going to go up in flames. And so obviously, I did not want that to happen. And so I had to offer this tenant help. I rallied some people together and I said, listen, I have a tenant. He's an elderly, disabled tenant. We need to get in with his consent to help him clean up and remove some of the things. Now, here's the thing, because this tenant had been a hoarder for so long, maintenance issues were not taken care of. So there were a large laundry list of issues and violations obvious in this apartment. And my goal was to make sure that I was able to offer this tenant some help. And so I was able to work with him. He agreed to allow people to come in and just start helping him to go through his things to see what he wanted to keep. Now, it was not an easy task. Let me just say that it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes people are so attached to their possessions that they want to hold on to it. Maybe they think, well, you know what, I'm just going to take it from here and put it in a pile here. Well, if they shift it from one pile to another area, still in another pile, it's not really resolving the matter. And so it took some time for this tenant to finally start to get rid of the things that he held on to for years, but eventually it did happen. Now, in addition to bringing people in to help clean up the apartment, I reached out to Adult Protective Services. I reached out to another nonprofit organization in that particular area that assists seniors and elderlies. And so they reached out for caseworkers to go to this resident's home, and they were able to offer assistance. But if this tenant said no, there's nothing that I could do. There was nothing, there's nothing really that anybody can do if the tenant is not allowing you to come in to help them. And so I want people to understand that you can catch more bees with honey than you can with vinegar. I always say that if you treat your business like a business, it will pay you like a business. And if you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby. Well, in treating your business, your rental property, it is a business. Um, if you treat it like a business, you don't wear your emotions on your sleeve. You're not upset because tenants are not allowing you to come in and to make repairs or to give them the help that you know that they need. Remember, I said that hoarding is a mental disability. And so, because it is mental, sometimes people don't realize they need help, right? So, clearly, you and I, we can see that Mr. and Mrs. Tennant, you clearly need some help. But if you just be nice, be soft, be kind, offer your assistance. And if they refuse your assistance, you know what? You've done your job. Just document it, create the paper trail, take your pictures, but don't violate them. Because again, because it is a disability, it is a protected class under fair housing laws. All right, so let me share my third tip with you today. If you have questions, if you have comments, please drop it in the comment box. Here's my third tip for landlords today. If all else fails, right, you documented the situation, you try to offer this tenant assistance, you should seek advice from a great landlord and tenant attorney who could help you in this matter. I know people are saying, well, Karissa, that's just cruel to evict somebody, especially if they have a disability. Is it cruel or is it business? Especially especially if there is a violation, if it's a health or safety violation, if it violates the lease, if it puts not just that rental property in danger, but think about others, if you will. Think about other residents. Think about other tenants and neighbors of this particular individual. Think about how if that rental property goes up in smoke, how it impacts other people. Think about, if you will, the tenant who has stacks of food. I shared how one of my tenants, one of my previous tenants, he had boxes of food that had piled up over the years. Think about a tenant, if you will, who has perishables in the property and bugs and rodents and mice and rats, cockroaches, spiders, and bed bugs and ants. We know that they don't stay in one particular place. They travel. So you don't want that. Okay. Excuse me. So those are my 3 tips. Let me go to my comments that have come in. Hello, Victor Blackwell. Thank you so much for tuning in. Victor, this is a true story. I'm sharing real scenarios, things that actually happen in property management, things that landlords deal with. And so if you are a landlord, if you are experiencing any of what I've shared today when it comes to hoarding, if you have a tenant who is a hoarder, talk to them. Document the process. Try to get them help. And again, they may not accept help. Some people refuse to receive assistance, and it's okay. They are disabled. You can't be mean and don't mistreat them. It's a mental health disorder. Okay. So, those are the 3 tips that I wanted to share with landlords. But I do want to speak to tenants for a second. I want to speak to renters. I want to speak to people who are hoarders in general, whether you own your property or you're renting a property. Get yourself some help because it's not safe. It's not okay for you to be in that situation. It's not okay. It's not safe for you to live in those type of living conditions. It is a hazard to your health. If you need help, reach out, ask for help. Maybe contact some sort of governmental agency. It just depends on the jurisdiction of the rental property. That will depend or that will determine where you can get help from. But help is available if you need it. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. Don't isolate yourself if you know that you are a potential hoarder. I know some people who are watching, they never considered the fact that they may be a hoarder. And if that's you, it's okay. You're not the first person. You are not alone. There are so many people like you and worse. Get yourself some help. It's okay. It's okay to say, I need help. All right. So those are the 3 tips that I wanted to share today. And I'm always available on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. to answer questions that you have. If you have a subject matter that you would like for me to discuss, please drop it in the comment section, and I will definitely do that. I always love to know where my viewers are tuned in from. Um, I'm looking at a text that came in. So someone is, and if you have my number, you can obviously text me questions. So someone texts and they want to know if a tenant, if the tenant unit, if the tenant's unit starts to affect another tenant's unit, can management do something about the pest issues, such as mice? If mice are coming down to other tenants' units, can the tenant complain about the problem requests both units to be treated. Okay, so it didn't come in quite so clear, but I understand what they're saying. So remember, I said that pests, they don't stay in the same place, they travel, right? So if there is a problem with infestation, and if it is in the lease, if it is in writing, let me just state that. Let me restate that. If it is in writing, if the tenant has signed a lease agreeing to making sure that the rental property is decent, safe, and sanitary, supposed to be clean, cannot have any pest control issues, then it would be a lease violation. Tenants and neighbors, they can request that that particular owner treat the rental property. I would strongly advise, let me just put a plug here. So now let me take off my property manager hat and put on my inspector hat. As a housing inspector, when I go in to any rental property, I'm always looking at the condition of the rental property. If I see something out of order, if I am not personally managing the property, if my company is not affiliated with the property, the first thing that I do is I notify the owner or the person who is responsible to let them know that there is an issue. Here is what infestation is. And I know this is going to catch some people by surprise. Infestation is defined as two or more. So, two or more roaches, two or more bed bugs, two or more mice. That is defined as infestation. That's what infestation is. It doesn't have to be a lot, two or more. I know a lot of you are like, Karissa, what the heck? That's correct. Infestation is two or more. So that's all it takes. It's two. So if you see a problem, say something to make sure that it's corrected so that the problem does not go to other rental properties. You don't want to have to treat multiple units, right? So let me take bed bugs, for instance, as an example here. Bed bugs is an extremely costly problem to get rid of. Now, the bed bug treatment, it could come by way of heat or it could come by way of chemicals. All right. So usually when chemicals are in play, they're spraying. Maybe the bed bug situation is mild. So the pest control, the exterminator, if you will, they'll spray the chemicals because it's a mild case. But in situations where the bed bug infestation is extreme, they will usually apply a large amount of heat to the entire apartment. Okay. And depending on how bad the situation is, it could take multiple treatments. And every time they go back, just depending on the company, the owner, the landlord, the property manager, the representative of the owner, whoever, somebody has to pay for that service. So here's why I say if it's in writing, okay, so now let me put my property manager hat back on. If it's not in writing, okay, you cannot enforce something that does not exist. So here's why I'm sharing this. In my lease, and a lot of you who have been following me, you already know what I'm going to say when it comes to my lease. My lease package is at least 61 pages long. No exaggeration. I'm very thorough. I'm very detailed in what I do. I believe in protecting the assets. And so, in order to do that, I understand. I write lease, I create lease agreements for my clients. It has to be in writing. And if the tenant agrees, then that's what we hold them responsible to. So, in my lease agreement, tenants must notify me that they have a pest control issue. That means it cannot be infested. It cannot be days, weeks, months, years later. And they say, oh, well, Karissa, I meant to tell you that we had roaches, and you go into the rental property and roaches are just crawling all over the place. You walk into the rental property and bed bugs are in the corner of every wall, right? Obviously, that didn't just appear overnight. That's severe infestation. That's nastiness to the highest level. Okay. So, my rental lease agreement, I explain to tenants when they are to notify me. And if they fail to notify me, they are responsible for any cost associated with treating that rental property. And so that's why it's so important that you put it in writing and have a conversation with your tenants. When you see something, you say something. Makes sense, right? Don't be afraid to have the conversation. All right, so let me go back to my comments that are coming in. All right, Ms. Davis, you said, what is the exact name of the violation you would document in the violation letter to the tenant? Great question. It just depends on how that lease is worded. And it also depends on, Ms. Davis, what the violation is. So for instance, in one rental property this year, I went in and the tenant had stacks of newspaper, right? And so it's going to speak to the lease of housekeeping. I would just quote whatever the lease says. I would copy it and paste it in that letter. So look at what you have in writing. Don't deviate from that because that's safe. All right. So look at it carefully, go over that rental lease agreement line by line, and you pull out the violation. You put it in writing, but you also have that communication with your tenant. All right. Yes, Ms. Davis, I see that your question does pertain to the hoarder. Hello, Lynette. Thank you so much for tuning in from Charlotte. Charlotte, North Carolina is in the building. And I see your question. If a lease has already been signed and everything has been agreed, can the landlord go back and change stuff if it's already been signed? Here's the thing. If the tenant has not signed it to agree, that's number one. We're talking about the rental lease agreement. All right. So let's just say in this situation, Lynette, the tenant moves in, maybe it's a week later, and the landlord realized, oh, you know what? I heard Karissa say something. Let me go back and add this to my lease because Karissa has a good point, and I should have this in my rental lease agreement, right? So the landlord goes back to the tenant and say, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, I'm so sorry. We need to revise the lease. So you get the lease back and you can revise it and have the tenant to sign it. Now, if the tenant has been in the property for an extended period of time and the landlord sees one of my lives that I do every Monday where I share information because sharing is caring. Um, so the landlord decides they want the landlord decides to make a change, right? And they send this tenant a letter to say effective April 1st, all tenants are required to notify us of pest control issues. As long as it's documented and you can show that you've provided this addendum or the policy change or the notice to the tenant, you put it in the tenant's file, you document the method of how you delivered the notification to the tenant. The tenant is usually going to be expected to conform to that. But now just make sure that you're not violating any laws when you do that. All right. But if it's not originally in the lease, you can revise the lease. You can send notices. Listen, things change. I have some rental properties where the tenants have been in place for 15, 20, 25 years. And so obviously things that I talk about today may not have been in place years ago. And in some jurisdictions, the lease doesn't renew. And I can't require, depending on where the rental property is, because different jurisdictions have different laws. So the different laws are going to come into play. But in jurisdictions where I cannot require a tenant to renew the lease or sign a new lease, I'll send them a letter to let them know of the changes. And I'll document how the tenant was notified. We posted the notices on the door. We mailed it by certified mail. So you just want to document it. But in jurisdictions where obviously the lease can be renewed and landlords can actually terminate the leases, I would just put it in writing. When you renew the lease, just put it in writing. But a landlord can't just come in and expect for something to happen that the tenant has obviously not been notified or aware of. So remember, Lynette, I said that you cannot enforce something that does not exist. So it must be in writing. So when it's in writing, it is an expectation that the tenant will adjust make changes, adapt to, conform, adhere to the terms of that rental lease agreement. All right, Jennifer, you said, what if you live in between two people that are hoarding and one of them dropped the bomb and now you got bugs? What could you do? What could you do? But the landlord, no. Okay, so if you're a tenant, great question. Thank you, Jennifer. So if you're a tenant and you live between two people that are hoarders, contact the landlord, the property manager, the property management, um, the management office. Let them know that, especially if you're impacted by the issues, let them know that you have pest control issues. You believe they may be coming from another apartment, and you are asking that they treat your unit. You want to definitely do that. You want to stay on top of that because if you don't, the situation can get worse. Listen, one of the things that I tell my tenants, so in addition to coaching landlords, consulting landlords, I also train tenants. One of the things that I tell tenants is this: don't wait for pest control to come out because landlords may have a contract to treat the property once a month or twice a month or once every 3 months or whatever the terms are, right? Don't just wait on your landlord to send the pest control out, the exterminator out. Go ahead and if you see roaches, just buy a can of bug spray and just spray. I tell some of my tenants, if you see an issue, if you don't want to wait on extermination, or if the problem is so severe where that once a month or that twice a month pest control service is not taking care of the issue, buy a bug spray, buy some bug spray. Um, doesn't have to be Raid. There's all types of treatments and pesticides that you could use. Some of my tenants, they create their own just to try to treat the problem. So why am I sharing this? Because I want tenants to understand that it's not the landlord's responsibility. It's not the landlord's responsibility solely to abate the problem. And so when you have obviously multiple treatments and services going on, the better. But I would recommend to work with the landlord in getting the property exterminated, treated. Like I said, get a can of roach spray or whatever the issue is to correct the problem. So great questions. I do appreciate that. I'll pause for a few seconds to see if there are any more questions that any of you have pertaining to this today. And again, I do appreciate you. I value you. Thank you so much for tuning in every week. Those of you who have been following me, this is what I do each and every Monday, right here on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Okay. I want people to understand that there is a better way to handle situations. All right. If you treat it like a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, guess what? It's going to pay you like a hobby. All right, Miss Anderson, you said, what can I do about a tenant that refuses to clean up and take their trash out? He would have open food containers and trash in the unit. Great question. Thank you for that. So if you have a tenant that refuses to clean up, please consider that it could be a mental health disability. It could be a disability. Sometimes people, for whatever reason, they just don't like to clean up. Maybe they are depressed. Maybe they're going through something in life. And although we can't see their physical disability, understand that mental health is a disability. So, mental health, a disability could be defined as physical or mental. So I just wanted to share that. But if you have a tenant who's not taking the trash out, and I've had a couple of those, I just, I find a way to communicate with them to let them know, especially if there are bugs, if there are gnats flying around, I'll just have a casual conversation. I usually start my day by saying, Happy Monday, Happy Tuesday. I try to find a sweet, soft side, a soft way to say things. Now, granted, it doesn't always work like that for everybody. Everybody won't receive you. It may not be a good day. It may always be a bad day for certain people. And so I would just have a conversation with your tenant Miss Anderson, and try to help the tenant to understand that, listen, hey, I see, hey, Mr. Tenant, um, um, just casual conversation, happy Monday or whatever. And then I'll get into maybe asking them how was their day. Hope you had a great day. Hope things are going well for you. Now that's if you're at the property. So I see your comments are still coming in. So I'm gonna go through each comment that you're bringing up, Miss Anderson. And so I'll start out with a casual conversation with this tenant to let them know, hey, hope all is well, because I want them to hear my heart. I have a heart for people, so I want them to hear that in my conversation. It's organic, it's authentic. And as I am in the rental property, or if complaints are coming in from other tenants, I will just let them know that we're concerned, and I just wanted to let you know that we're going to be doing an inspection in the upcoming weeks. And I always start out with an inspection for needed repairs. Here's why I do that. So when I do an inspection for needed repairs, Miss Anderson, I'm not just looking for repairs. I'm looking at housekeeping issues as well. All right. And so as I'm in the rental property, um, I'm looking at what the condition of the property is. In addition to repairs that are needed, are there nets flying around? Are there roaches everywhere? Are there bed bugs or ants and stuff like that? And so if I see, for instance, trash overflowing and just, the trash is just piled up and there are bags of trash in the rental property or outside the door, I will address that. Hey, Mr. Tenant, I noticed you have some trash bags, or maybe they don't have trash bags. Maybe trash is just everywhere. And sometimes tenants, they don't have the money to buy trash bags. And I'll just put trash everywhere because that's just what they do. All right. So I will acknowledge what I see, or I will acknowledge the complaints that have come in, to let the tenant know that we're concerned about the trash that are overflowing. And Mr. Tenant, did you know that, when you put your trash bags down or you don't take the trash out, that sometimes, that's what bring about the nets. And we really, we want to help you to get rid of the nets. So let them know that if you have a big, large trash canister on the property, let them know. And although it really doesn't matter, it shouldn't matter to them what days the trash is picked up, but just have a conversation, let them know, hey, well, Mr. Tenant, we have trash pickup days on Tuesdays and Fridays. But you're welcome to put the trash out, anytime. And depending on the property and how severe it is, maybe if I don't know the size of your property, Ms. Anderson, I'm just throwing it out there. If you offer a fee for taking out the tenant's trash, some rental properties, they offer that as a service. If that's not an option for you, I retract that statement. So you said there are other tenants that are complaining. They're confident. The other tenants are complaining. They have comforted the vet on numerous contacted. Let me read the question again. Okay, so the tenant is a retired older vet. Okay, so they contacted the Veterans Administration on numerous occasions. Okay, so in that case, if this tenant is coming through some sort of housing program, they should have a case manager or social worker that is involved. And so I would say contact that agency to see if they can get this tenant some help, because usually there is assistance available through those programs. The vet would get angry and threaten to shoot the other tenants. Shut the front door. Sorry. The vet would get angry and threaten to shoot other tenants when he feel that he is being threatened. You issued a 30-day notice to terminate the lease violation. Good for you, because that's not good. We don't want anybody to shoot. We don't want our tenants threatening to shoot other tenants. And so in that case, it does sound like there's some sort of mental health disability going on. So the best thing to do is what you've done. Notify the tenant in writing that there's a violation. Okay, give a notice to vacate if it violates the lease, which it clearly sounds like it does. And then again, reach out to the agency that they have come through to get the housing assistance, because that's a serious matter. And if you don't do that, then worst case scenario can happen where he actually shoots another tenant or other tenants, or worse, you. So reach out to the VA administration or the housing agency that he came through. He refused to leave, and what? He took you to court. He told a judge that he didn't have anywhere to go, and the Veteran Administration is in the process of finding him a place. Okay, so this sounds like it's in a jurisdiction that is for tenants, that's pro tenant. And usually that happens because in jurisdictions that are pro tenant, meaning that the laws, the courts are strongly in favor of the tenant. They recognize, listen, this is a vet. You can't put a vet out. You just got to just kind of work with the vet, got to work with him until he gets housing, because they don't want to see vets, especially, or seniors or disabled. They don't want to see people out on the street. So I understand, follow through with the process, follow up with the VA administration so that they could move expeditiously. But just, um, and I don't know if you had an attorney, but just continue to work with this tenant. If you have an attorney, press your attorney to work with their attorney to get this vet out, because obviously this living condition is not safe. It is definitely unhealthy. And so you said, in the meantime, he is still living in the property. The judge didn't allow the eviction. What can I do? At this point, absolutely nothing but to reach out to the VA administration and see if the caseworker or the case manager, the social worker, somebody can help, because there's nothing that you can do. And I wouldn't recommend doing anything additional. I would not even recommend trying to have a civil conversation with this tenant if you feel like your life is in danger, especially because this tenant is threatening to shoot people. And we don't know if he actually will, but we want to take it seriously. So you say the VA administration, the Veterans Administration took the gun from him, but you still want him out the unit. Well, rightfully so, you should, because just because they took that gun doesn't mean he can't get another gun, right? So, yeah, you definitely want to make sure that you work with the VA organization to get this person some help. He needs help, and it is unfortunate. This is not the first situation. It won't be the last, unfortunately, of something like this happening. And so, I thank you all for showing up today. I do apologize. I'm suffering from allergies. Um, this is what I do each and every Monday. I share information, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you have questions, you can email me. You can inbox me. Even if I'm not online, you can email me. Here is my email address. Feel free to email me. If you are not watching, if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please find my YouTube channel and subscribe so that you'll be the first to know when I'm live and when I am online. Please stay connected with me. I am bringing you more information. So next week, it's going to be a different topic. Next week, I'm going to talk about the costly mistakes of not making repairs. And again, if you have subject matters that you would like for me to address, please email me, put it in the comment section. Feel free to inbox me, and I will definitely address them. Okay. So connect with me, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. If you have questions, feel free to email me. My email address is karissaspann@gmail.com. I thank you so much for tuning in, for watching. And thank you for those of you who are watching the replay. My time is up. I thank you for yours, and I look forward to you joining me next week right here on either my Facebook, my YouTube, or my LinkedIn channel. So I'm going to say bye for now.